All right. Thank you to everybody for coming today. And as I had said earlier, I am going to be talking about how to apply for candidacy status. You know, what is it that you actually have to put together and put forward? I will do a little bit of a shout out here to Calvin Williams because he's already gone through this process. So he can be like your resident expert. So I might call on you, but I will be explaining what's going on and how to submit items, but I also want to take your questions. So I'll do my best, of course, to read the chat and then just interrupt me, you know, if you have a question, and we can focus on what's important to you. All right, so let me just share this slide presentation, which will kind of take away some elements of being able to see each other. So if you need to really tap me on the shoulder, so to speak, then that'll help me help you. Can everybody see it? Because usually it's, you know, kind of small. I can try to make it bigger. All right, what do I, you know, so I wanted to kind of demystify this part of the process by talking about what it is and why it's important, and just to walk you through literally the list of questions that you will get or have gotten if you are a program member of COSMA. That tells you what you're supposed to submit. Of course, all of this information is located in a couple of different manuals. We have an accreditation process manual, and we also have our accreditation principles manual. So you can find this information on our website as well. And part of what I talk about today is where to find it so that you can locate it. So the point of doing this is that different questions, different responses that you're being asked to provide actually correspond to different COSMA principles. And so I will outline that as we go along. It's not that these are random questions asked and it's has nothing to do with the self-study process, but it's trying to get you a little bit acquainted with some of the areas that you will be significantly asked about and you will be writing about in your self-study document. So it's a way to help you prepare to write that document and to learn a little bit more about what those areas of compliance are. It also should help prepare you for a site visit where you're going to be talking about what you're going to, what is in the self-study document and how you're compliant with the principles. That's a little bit farther down the road though. So this is where this is really just a way to help you, you know, kind of be efficient in your time and energy as you go through it and make you just feel a little bit more confident about what's going on. So we have bi-monthly deadlines, which means every 2 months. Those deadlines are both set, but also flexible at the same time. So we have one coming up on October 15th. So that's in a week. I've heard from some people that maybe they would have their applications ready, but if you don't, that's okay. Talk to me, you know, well, we're going to have it ready by the 21st of October or by November 12th, you know, whatever it is. I would like to see a draft of it, and I will help you with your organization, with the content, that sort of thing. I'm here to help you be successful. So I'm not, you know, trying to put up a barrier. I'm really trying to help you know, based on lots of these that I have read and many decisions that I've heard from the Board of Commissioners, to know what they're going to focus on and what's confusing. I'm an outside person as well. So you know your program, you know your institution, and maybe what you have written isn't clear to me, and that could just help you be clear to this group, the Board of Commissioners that makes those decisions. So the big focus of the candidacy application is actually the outcomes assessment plan. So I will spend some time on that. So I am literally just going to give you some advice about what to include for the different areas that you're asked about in the list of items that you're supposed to provide. So this evidence that you offer a degree program, you can provide a link to your departmental or the degree program web pages that shows that you actually have a degree program in sport management. It depends on how many programs you have or at what levels, but you may have a number of different pages that talk about sport management. So that's pretty simple. The regional accreditation, or if nobody is here is from outside of the United States. So the regional accreditor is really the one that we just need to know that you're at an institution that is allowed to legally confer degrees. So there, usually at this point, there's a link to the most recent accreditation. Certainly you may be coming up on another regional accreditation, and that's not a big deal. Your catalog, generally, the most up-to-date one is electronic. Sometimes it's not, whatever is the way that you provide it is fine. We're not asking you to print out a bunch of paper. So a PDF can work, or some other format for the catalog, but it's another way for the commissioners just to check out, what does it look like to a person looking at the catalog? What does your sport management program look like? Do the classes you list there match the ones that you're going to provide information about? That kind of thing. It's just to verify that the information that you're providing is up to date. I don't know if anybody has this circumstance, so I won't dwell on it unless you want me to, but there may be a sport communications program somewhere, or sport psychology, and it may be in a totally different location on campus, and there actually are no sport classes or one sport class, or it's not really a sport management program. So we do focus quite a bit at this stage on which programs are included. So I can spend a lot of time on this because it's actually really important. If you think about it, we need to know what is included in this process, what ultimately is accredited, and then if there's anything that might be perceived as sport or accredited, we need to be able to make sure that it's clear that that's not the case. So we do ask that you go through, you are transparent in what programs are available to students and what relationship that has with you, the sport management department. And if you have any questions about that, I guess I can address them, at any time during this presentation. But the other thing I want to emphasize is that you may have a face-to-face degree program, an online program, a hybrid program, a program that's online and hybrid in this city and in that city and on that campus. So you need to just include them all in this process. Generally, the mode of delivery is not something that would exclude a program. Okay, so some of the questions that you're asked is just to provide a mission statement for your program. If you do not have one, then you will write one. It may be, sometimes I go to websites and there's kind of a mission there already. You might already have this put together, but you didn't really call it that. But the outcomes focus of this accreditation process always goes back to the mission. So if you say you're going to educate sport management students and prepare them for jobs in sport industry, then many of the things you do need to then reinforce that mission. So if you have a very specific focus in sport management, then I'd probably, you'd want to show how you're measuring that, what that looks like in your curriculum, how your faculty are experts in that area, because that then supports the mission. But that is related to principle 1, which we will talk more about. You just indicate which programs are going through this process. For some of you, that may just be that you have the one bachelor's degree, so it's not that complicated. And then we want to know where they're located. This is, again, kind of that scope of accreditation, but also we have a principle that asks about resources and location. So that's principle 6. And then we do ask what the enrollment has been in the program for the last 3 years and the number of degrees conferred. And that is another way to check that you have a program that's fully in operation. And maybe, this is not necessarily enough data to show that numbers are on the rise or numbers are falling. That's not necessarily what's going on in that question. And then to link to principle 4, which is faculty, we ask you to list only your full-time faculty who teach in the program. So they're likely to be in your department. They might be also, there may be a faculty person who's in another division like business or something else that may also teach in your program. So include those people. We just want to see that there is this department is led by a doctorally or professionally qualified individual. That's the only reason for this. There are many other questions about faculty that we ask. We ask about part-time and adjunct faculty in the self-study document, but not at this stage. So don't list your part-time faculty because that is, not the question. Then you also will list the general education requirements if you're talking about an undergraduate program that students complete, and you can literally cut and paste that or whatever works. You can provide a link, to find that information. And then also what your required sport management core classes are. So for undergraduate programs, we do ask that 20% of their total credit hours are spent on sport classes. That's another thing that helps define sport management as opposed to something that has some sport in it, but is really business or is really communications or psychology or something else. If you are on the cusp of that 20%, we can talk about what that means. Certainly, and I'm thinking specifically of programs that are housed in business schools, there can be a very strong business core and then also a sport management core, and that might reduce those numbers. If you have a master's degree, it's 50%. And then there are no requirements in this same vein for doctoral programs. But all the questions, of course, about curriculum relate to Principle 3, which is curriculum. And then you may have some other required classes that would help students get into maybe a specific area or other things that you want students to select courses from. So you would include what those are as well. You don't have to have anything like that. And then while this may not really pertain to institutions in the United States, we do want to know what language you're teaching in so that we can provide somebody who speaks that language at a site visit. So we do ask that, even if it seems strange if you are in this country.
Heather, could I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
On the slide before, when you talk about required classes beyond the sport management core, we have sport management classes, SMT is the acronym for it, but we also have, and they're required, sports economics, which comes from the economics department, sport and society, which comes from the sociology department. Do those count as core classes, or are those the ones beyond the sport management core?
It sounds like they are part of the sport management core to me because it's sport economics. Yeah, even if it's taught in another department.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, I'm trying to think of some examples of what might be other. Sometimes it's that there is maybe a focus, like let's say journalism or something like that. So you have to learn a little bit about writing or about the running of publications. So it's sort of not, it's going to relate to that minor or that concentration, but it's not sports specific. So it sounds like you would include those in that sport core. And we definitely see all different kinds of prefixes on sport core classes because even some departments aren't even called sport management. There might still be kinesiology or physical education or business or many options. So that's okay. That's okay. There is a person in the chat. All right. The question is, is this what you were asking me? Oh, do we care about students who are earning a minor? We do care, but we do not accredit minors. So just what you will do is there will be, as you're providing a description of your department, you can talk about any minors that you have, and those are not irrelevant. They just aren't accredited. So it'll just help us get a picture of what you're doing. I think it pertains more to where your resources are going, your teaching and other resources. It just gives us a bigger picture of what's going on at your institution. So it's not wrong, it's not right. It's just what it is, and that's what we're asking about. All right. Okay, the outcomes assessment plan. All right, it consists, it just looks like one question on your candidacy status list of items to submit, but it is its own separate template and it is important. So as I mentioned before, you will be stating a mission for your sport management academic unit or department. And then you will be writing some broad-based goals, which stem from your mission and are more broad and not necessarily measurable. And then your student learning outcomes will be specific and they will be measurable. So I can focus on these more individually in a moment. Another section of the outcomes assessment plan that is important is what we call operational effectiveness goals. So these are goals that relate to the academic unit or the department. So it's about that sort of that system, that function. It's not about student learning. And the types of things you might want to measure may stem from your strategic plan or the university's strategic plans. And it could be about retention. It could be about recruitment. It could be about job placement or students that go on to graduate school. So it might be those kinds of measures or metrics. It also could be about teaching effectiveness or what faculty do for professional development or what faculty do that is in consultation with sport industry. So it could be that you want to encourage or have goals that relate to making connections with sport industry. I've seen a lot of different goals. It's open. Let's put it that way. And same with the student learning outcomes, of course. But that's what that means, just in case that's not clear. And then for your student learning outcomes, you need to measure each outcome, and there is not really a minimum number of outcomes you need to have or a maximum. Just know that if you write 15 student learning outcomes, you're going to have to report all that data, all that, so that's kind of a lot of things. We sort of say maybe between 4 and 7. That's kind of a sweet spot. That is not a requirement. I'm just giving you a general idea of what is usual. Maybe we have 3 to 5 operational effectiveness goals that we see. Could be more, could be fewer. With the student learning outcomes, you are going to identify 2 different types of measurement tools. You're going to identify some indirect measures and some direct measures. So some people are confused about what those are, and I do understand that, but in the word direct, you are directly measuring what the student knows or what the student can do. So that is your assignments or your projects or your presentations. Those are more related directly to what happens in individual courses, let's say. And then an indirect measure is maybe it's a way of having somebody else, like an internship supervisor, say what they think the student has learned or can do or knows, or the student themselves maybe reflecting upon what they've learned or how things have changed. And so it's not the actual demonstration of the knowledge. It's the somebody is talking indirectly about what the student might know or be able to do. So there are fewer options for indirect measures. There are many, many options for direct measures. So if you have already identified outcomes and you already have measures, that's great. You will, for the student learning outcomes as a whole, so the whole group of them, so let's say you have 5, you have to identify 2 at minimum direct measures, 2 at minimum indirect measures. That doesn't mean for each SLO, it is SLO or measures can be repeated across student learning outcomes. So you may have an internship supervisor item that could be used for multiple student learning outcomes. Same with some student may do a marketing project that will be able to measure several of your student learning outcomes. So those can be repeated. And you can, of course, it is a better practice to measure each student learning outcome more than once, but you also are not required to do that. So you could measure them just once. You could just have the minimum 2 direct and 2 indirect measures. Of course, the other purpose of this process is to do more than just what is minimally required and to really, identify what you want your students to know and be able to do at the end of the program, and then, robustly measure it and understand what it means. So that's kind of a general overview there of the outcomes assessment plan. I can go to the template that you will be required to use, and I can go through what it looks like if you would like to do that. So nodding of heads. Okay, I'm going to pull that up, but then also share that. All right, this one I will definitely need to make bigger. This is the checklist. All right, is this what you're seeing? Are you seeing the right thing? Is this a outcomes assessment plan template? Let me just make sure that, yeah, that's, okay, good. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. So it lists all of the things that I was talking about, but it also tries to give you a little bit of help. So you have to write your mission, and you do have to write broad-based goals. You will see that if you do have more than just an undergraduate program, that you will be identifying different goals. They may be, of course, very much related, but different goals for each level. If you have more than one degree program that is different enough sort of in its core sport management classes, you might also then need to develop different goals for them. And we can talk about that if that's a scenario that you're facing. And then this is just some information about how to write those student learning outcomes and the measurement tools. So this is all stuff that you will end up deleting, but it's trying to help you. I also provide some samples. This doesn't mean that you need to use them or that they are the best written student learning outcomes that have ever been written. Those are samples. What I'm trying to show you here in these examples is that some way that you can do a direct measure might be an affirmative and a summative assessment, which you then can compare. That's just one possible thing to do. You might develop a rubric for a writing reflection that a student does. You may have a final exam as a direct measure. And again, another example of an indirect measure might be an internship supervisor evaluation. So those are, again, examples. And you would develop different student learning outcomes for different degree levels again. And then to move on to these operational effectiveness goals, I did provide one example here, but then there are others. We try to, I guess the one thing to keep in mind for the operational effectiveness goals is you can, to have a goal that's kind of one and done, like to achieve accreditation. Once you do that, what is really at the core of what that goal is? Is it about continuous improvement, or is it about maintaining the accreditation in a specific way? Maybe there's a way that you can frame it so that you don't just sort of achieve something and then it's gone, but that you are thinking about the longer term goals of your program. So it really can speak to research. It can speak to presentations or conference attendance. It can speak to teaching and advising of students, or all kinds of things that are both challenging and a part of what you do. That's not just teaching and research, but the whole picture. Maybe participation on university committees in some way. And then there are just a couple of small sections that I didn't go over before, but we just want to know, how does your institution provide kind of the basic skills of writing and math and those types of things for your students? That's really at the bachelor's level. And then personal development is it's very broad. What else are you doing for students that help prepare them to go on to graduate school or to get a job? Maybe it can be, so if you have a lot of first generation students, it may be a different set of skills that you're trying to help them with than students who have other folks that have gone to college and their families. It may be very specific to the type of institution that you are at, or the region that you are in, and it could be broader than that. So you can say whatever you like. And then some of you may have collected data already, and some of you may have not. You can still be granted a candidacy status and have no data. So if you're just in the process of developing the plan, that's okay. And then if you have been doing this for a while and now you're reassessing it, or you are seeing how it fits into this template, you can include your data. So there is a matrix that you use here, and it really then helps, of course, really the Board of Commissioners be able to look annually at what you're providing in a way that is a format that they can read. So that's why we do it this way. This is just a slot to put your student learning outcome, the actual words here. It says measure 1 and measure 2. That doesn't mean you have to have 2 measures. You might have 4 measures. You may have 1. That's up to you. One important thing to do a lot of thinking about is your benchmarking, because if you've collected data before, then assumedly you know how students are doing on that specific measurement tool that relates to that student learning outcome. And then the benchmark, how many are you meeting your benchmark? Are you exceeding your benchmark? What does that mean? Does that mean that you should raise your benchmark? Does it mean you should lower your benchmark? Does it mean that there are some content areas that are not quite getting across to students? Is it where it's located in the program? It could be a very complicated answer to what your benchmark is and what it means to meet or exceed it. We have some programs that set very high benchmarks, that 90% of students will get a very top score on a rubric, and they don't meet it. They meet 80, they get an 88% or 85%. That's very good, very successful. It is not a bad thing if you don't meet your benchmark. For them, it's important to continue to sort of push that bar as high as possible, and to, maybe they do meet the benchmark, but that also doesn't mean that they've, that's it, we're done, we've succeeded. They want to maintain a high level. You also will be indicating how many students have been observed. You are required to include all of the students in your degree program. They all need to be measured. So if you have any questions about what that might look like, let me know. And then you provide the data that you collected in this column, what percent met your benchmark, and then you would just say whether you have exceeded or not exceeded expectations, etc. And then another very important section, of course, is just to summarize your data. What does it mean to you? We want you to talk about all of the data. You may have exceeded expectations everywhere. That doesn't mean that it doesn't mean anything or that you have nothing to say about it. You can, of course, pat yourself on the back in this section, but what else is going on? Please let us know. And then, of course, what are you going to do with that information? It doesn't mean that every year you're going to rewrite your curriculum or hire new faculty or anything major, but you may say, okay, this is the first year that we met our expectations, so we're just going to do another year and see how that goes. Or you may have met expectations or exceeded them for several years, and now you're ready to implement some sort of a change. I guess another program I'm thinking of actually changed. They had a student learning outcome about I guess not understanding, because that's not a great verb, but being able to gain the knowledge from the common professional component areas. So that's a lot of different areas. And then they realized that, they can meet that. Their students are getting that basic information, but what they really need to work on is critical thinking. So they developed a student learning outcome around critical thinking. And that's a much harder skill to acquire, maybe even to measure. And so, it takes several years then maybe to really understand how you're going to focus on that and get the students to focus on that, so that they are also examining what they're doing and how they're doing it in a different way. So that's a different type of growth that we have seen. And then you have a similar but shorter matrix for the operational effectiveness goals. Again, there are just sort of placeholders here to help you know where to put things. Again, you have a benchmark, and some of this data you may already have being collected on campus, maybe not by you, but you may have an office that collects graduation rates, and then you would just get the graduation rates for your degree, your graduates, not everybody, but just your people. And then you talk a little bit about what this data means to you, et cetera. And then at the end, there are just some definitions to help you understand the vocabulary that's being used. All right. me just stop there for a second and kind of check in. I'll go back to the slideshow and kind of finish out, but anybody have any questions or comments? Otis, do you have any question?
No.
Okay. That's fine. All right. I'll just go back to the slides.
Dimitri also had a question.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me. When you mentioned the development of basic skills and the development, the personal development side that you wanted us to report, things that are happening outside of the department, can we include that? Let's say they're happening at the college level, or the college is doing, providing some workshops for interviewing skills, or can that be included here?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So there is principle 7 is internal and external relationships. And so later you will talk about those kinds of connections, but that's a great question. Thank you for asking, because yes, this is about your program and it's about what you're doing, but probably, and certainly we would encourage that you take advantage of all of the other departments on campus that provide your student with tutoring assistance or writing assistance. Maybe some core curricula include intensive writing across the curriculum. So you might even just be teaching that in one of your sport management courses. It may be a writing intensive course and be a part of the core as well. There may be a career counseling office that's going to help students identify the types of jobs or part-time work or even on-campus jobs that they might have, not necessarily related to sport, but that can help them prepare for work. And then of course, you may have some things that you do yourselves that are specific to sport management, and maybe may or may not be related to experiential learning or an internship, but could be related to just general knowledge and skills, how to dress for an interview, how to shake hands, how to make eye contact. Some of those things are even something that you may see that there's a need. It may be among your students, or it may be that across campus there are needs that are also reflected in your students. So yes, do include those as well. Some of those sections are written at length and some are shorter. It's not about how long it is. It might just be about what's being identified. And I think that sometimes I might read a section when I'm looking over a draft and I might say, well, can you say more about this? Or is there anything else happening? And the thing is, I don't know. I can certainly go on your website and I can look around, but do share as much as you think is relevant. It's okay to brag. It's okay to say as much as you think you think that the commissioners would want to know. And certainly when you then have a site visit, you are hopefully face-to-face telling site reviewers what's going on. They're going to talk to students. They're going to talk to administrators and faculty. They're going to be hearing from a number of constituents, and then they will then also get a broader picture of what's going on. So be sure to include many things that are relevant to the questions that are asked. Okay, the last pieces of information that you submit in this application are could be a cut and pasted list of your business and industry linkages. This is connected to Principle 7, and I mentioned that was internal and external relationships. So the places that you may get guest speakers from, you may be sending students to work or to do internships or externships. It could be that there is a local business or team that you partner with to do case studies. It could be a lot of different things, so please include that. And then we do ask just to see kind of where your department fits in with a larger college, let's say, and then the university as a whole. Don't sweat this one too much. It can sometimes exist, and you can just sort of download the organizational chart, and it may be something that you have to create. So don't work too hard on it. Just just kind of show us like, this is where we are, this is who else is in this college, and then this is where the college fits into the larger administrative structure. And then we ask that you get a letter from an administrator to support your department going through this process. And as you might know already, it does take time, effort, and some resources to go through the process to then maintain the accreditation, and having the support of that administrator for various reasons is really important. So we ask for you to do that as well. And last but certainly not least, and I've alluded to this already, is that I would love to see a draft of what you're going to put together. I'm going to help you, as I said, be successful. So I might ask you, I don't understand this, or I would like you to organize this in a way that's different, or could you put in a table of contents that might help? Or I tried to click this link and I didn't go anywhere. So how do we fix that? So I will help you. You can call me or email me whenever you need to, and I will read a draft. So let's say you haven't spoken to me and you submit your candidacy application on October 15th. I am not going to just send it to the Board of Commissioners. I would read it, and then I would say, hey, this looks ready to go. Thanks, or okay, I have some questions. Or this, you didn't follow our format, or, just some guidance and some things to help you get ready. And then we would talk about when it might actually be ready. And then I would convene the Board of Commissioners together. So we have calls like this to make these discussions happen frequently, so that you are not held up, or it's not, not based on when they meet in person. Candidacy status, once it's granted, would last up to 5 years. Most programs, once the momentum is going, you want to get that approval, maybe get some feedback from the Board of Commissioners, and then you want to move forward. And I encourage that, just to keep that wheel rolling. But you can generally write the self-study right away. However, your letter that you get back from the Board of Commissioners will identify any items that you might need to correct or to provide more information about, and a timeline within which to do that. So you do have to read the letter and see what it says. For some programs, if they just have a plan, but they haven't collected data, you're gonna have to wait to have at least a year of that data, and some time to then identify any actions and implement them if needed based on that data. So you do have to close that loop before you can go through the final part of the process, which is, to become accredited. And then here are a few places on the website where you can find examples or samples. There is I can also just show you what it looks like, but there are the actual accreditation documents on every page under the accreditation tab, various video tutorials, and then there is a mentoring program, and can be as sort of formal or informal as you want, but I have contact with a lot of site reviewers, ex-commissioners, those kinds of resources that can help you if you need to consult with anybody about outcomes assessment or anything else. And I'm also there to provide that assistance, but if you want to talk to somebody else who has experience that's different from me, you're welcome to do that. All right, so is that clear? Everybody gets it? Okay. Any other questions about the outcomes assessment plan or any of the items that you're supposed to provide? No? All right, I'm going to stop recording.